Hi, friends. So, the internet has been fun over the last few days since the Oscars. Um, there's basically one thing people are talking about, and it's Will Smith slapping Chris Rock. I am not going to talk about the slap. I don't feel comfortable making judgments about what Mr. Smith did. That I don't see that as my place. As far as I'm concerned, this is a Black people issue. They have been very clear that they don't want non-Black people's opinions, so I'm going to listen to them. What I do want to talk about is the joke. So, what happened was Chris Rock made a joke, which was a bad joke. I think most everyone I've heard agrees on that, about Jada Pinkett Smith's hair. She has alopecia, and he joked about G.I. Jane, which is a very old, pretty much irrelevant film. So I've heard a number of people talking about how it's a bad joke. I've heard, various discussions of whether it was in poor taste or saying we shouldn't joke about people's health condition. Variations on that. I've had a few different conversations about that. What I said on Twitter right away, and I'm going to sort of expand on, is that actually we shouldn't joke about people's bodies at all. To my mind, we really shouldn't comment on people's bodies without permission. Sort of like if everyone isn't in on the joke, it isn't a joke. Yeah, very specifically, it's about, the line needs to be about the person's consent. So why isn't it enough to say, don't joke about people's health conditions, don't joke about people's disabilities? Because there is a debate going on right now. People are arguing, is alopecia a disability or not? Disability rights activists say it is. And people who judge based purely on like the ADA are arguing that it's not. But does it need? I would say that it is. It's, there can be an expansive definition of disability. But even then, does it have to be a disability for it to be wrong to mock someone for something about their body without their consent? The other debate that happens is people argue that about what is or isn't a health condition. People also argue about what is or isn't a choice. And they'll say, oh, if something's a choice, then it's okay to mock it. And you don't actually know what is or isn't a person's choice to begin with. And sometimes people will define something as a choice that isn't. I, as a fat person, people tend to ascribe my body as a choice and think it's okay to mock it. When I choose to not participate in diet culture, you may think that I'm choosing to be unhealthy, but I know enough to choose what parts of my health to prioritize in that moment, and I know what is and isn't an effective treatment. So essentially, there is a lot going on when people are making choices that you know nothing about. You know nothing about a stranger's trauma. Now, unless you're living under a rock, I hope you are aware that for a lot of Black women, the issue of their hair is often a place of trauma, which is why we shouldn't talk about it. I am not ever going to comment on a Black woman's hair beyond, wow, it looks nice. I don't know enough. I'll give compliments because everybody should have lots of compliments, but it's not right for me to say anything about it. And if I shouldn't even be saying that it looks nice, tell me and I will stop. There are when we're talking about people's bodies, people often carry a lot of trauma in their bodies, and you never know what's going on with someone unless they have consented to you making a joke, to, a situation where they know what they're going in for. And people have a tendency to think of fame as blanket consent. But if we think about it, this is a woman who was a work event for her husband in a career, like her career is acting. Therefore, these are her coworkers. And she was disrespected publicly in front of the entire world and her coworkers. That should not have happened. And beyond the personal, all the people out in the world with alopecia also saw someone who has a condition like them being mocked in front of their coworkers and the entire world. That's not okay. It sends a signal that it is okay to mock someone for this condition, for any other condition, for something about their body that you think is mockable, that is in some way different than other people. And that's not okay. It contributes to ableism. In this case, it contributes to racism. The disrespect of Black women's hair is a part of racism. Therefore, it contributes to racism, to misogynoir, in fact, to to both misogyny and anti-Blackness. And none of that is okay. The violation of someone's boundaries. And it matters that this was about Black women, because these are the people in the world who have most consistently had their boundaries and their body autonomy not respected. And when we let one group of people have their autonomy not respected, we're opening the door for everyone to be not respected. And it's just not okay for our fellow human beings to be disrespected like that. So I really wish the Oscars, for example, would stop including roasting comedy. This is not, it's not funny, and it's not okay. And I'm not judging you if you've laughed at it in the past. We've all done things in the past before we knew better. But how about this be a moment when we say how we stop, and we say we know better. We want a consent culture. This is what consent means. We don't comment, we don't do anything about other people's bodies without they're okay. We center the agency of the human, which is why, people who want to be roasted, who enjoy this kind of humor, can go to an event with a comic where they know that this is the sort of thing that happens, and they are entering into informed consent. But that's not what the Oscars are. And also, when something is broadcast to the entire world, there are ramifications beyond the room. So the joke is not okay. One thing I've seen more than once is comics, particularly, saying, well, now comics are going to be afraid to joke because they'll be afraid that that this will happen to them. Well, I'm not saying it should happen to them, and I'm not saying you should be afraid, but maybe if that's your response, maybe you need to think again about the kind of comedy you do. Because if you're violating people's boundaries consistently, is that comedy or is that bullying? And yes, people talk about punching up versus punching down and say if the person is in power or in a power position in some way, then it's okay to mock them because you're punching up. But when you're punching at bodies, that is violence, even when it's words. And also, you're sending a signal that the body is a problem, not the person in it. And so other people will see you doing that and, think it's okay. When people make jokes about politicians who are both evil and fat, because they think they can get away with making fat jokes because the person is evil and no one likes them, it actually does rebound on people who have bodies like them but aren't. So it's still contributing to ableism. When you mock Donald Trump for his walk, his standing, his size, anything like that, you're still contributing to healthism, you're still contributing to ableism. Especially because there is like anything and everything that you could make fun of him for. Why are you picking on the one thing that he has in common with other people? And no, I am not going to defend him. I would defend Jada Pinkett Smith. I don't know of her having done anything evil. So yeah, it is like the line has to be consent. Has to be just don't. Find other things to joke about. And I'm not saying nobody can make a disabled joke. Disabled people make great disabled jokes. Fat people can make good fat jokes. There is a sense in which that is like joking from our own darkness is a different thing than you joking at our darkness, than you poking fun at somebody being different than expected in some way, that their body, their mind, their hair is some way different from what the society has constructed as default. When you make that laughable, it's icky. It's offensive. It's ableism. It's bullying. Don't. And like I said, don't judge yourself for having done it in the past. Just stop doing it in the future. And no, I'm not saying people who do this kind of humor should get slapped. But I do kind of understand someone who has watched the person that they love be mocked multiple times having a reaction that maybe wasn't the best reaction. So I'm not comfortable judging them on that. It's also, it's just, you can just make different jokes. So just make different jokes. So yeah. And do not mock someone on international television at a work event. That's have a little empathy. Yeah. Have a little empathy. So yeah, that is all I have to say on that. Thanks, friends. Just sort of thinking out loud. Yeah.